So today is spiritual refreshment. It's also one of our 2 Rose Sundays of the year. The other one happens to happen in Advent, which I keep wanting to call Lent for some reason. Even though we're in Lent now, but yeah. And basically, Lent is a time of reflection, and it has more of a somber mood, whereas the Rose is more of the, I guess, like the light and the darkness sort of a thing, which I think is an interesting contrast to the fact that today we're also celebrating the martyrdom of the Cathars, which actually fits really well into the lesson in the gospel, because upon first reading, it seems like we don't need to talk much about it, because it makes sense. Like, some of our readings definitely require a lot of thought to get, and some of them are easier to get at first glance. And this is one that's both. The thing I wanted to focus on was the first one, which I'm going to repeat. I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. And contentment is one of those things that seems like it should be easy until you look at it, and then you realize it's actually a lot hard. Because contentment is something that subconsciously I think of as an external thing. Like, people seem content or look content or have a contented aura, or, that sort of a thing. But when I really sat and thought about it, I realized that contentment is actually completely internal. Because, I'm going to give you a very weird / basic example. I used to think I had Zen when it came to driving. Basically, if anyone had cut me off or anything weird, I would either laugh and go, "Oh, I've done that," or I would think about it until I came up with a scenario where I was no longer mad at them. Like, if I have a kid, they're having a baby, their wife's in labor, somebody's in the hospital, whatever. Because the truth was, I was never going to know, and who knew? Maybe one of them was true. And so since I had the state of calm while driving, I thought that meant it was good. But then I started testosterone, and that all went up a little bit. Which was not something I expected on any account. And I realized that, before I started testosterone, I knew I had a lot of anger that I was not feeling or doing anything with or acting on, or just stuffing it all down and I'll deal with it later, or not at all, or whatever. And I knew it was unhealthy when I was doing it. I did it anyway because I didn't know what else to do with it, because I've been doing that my whole life. And when you have one tool, you use it on everything because that's what you got. And then my emotional pie changed, and I couldn't not deal with it because there was so much more of it. But I didn't have, I had the same amount of emotions, it was just chopped up differently. And so it made me, I had to figure out what to do with my anger at first in my life, in my, 20s, 30s? Do not recommend. Anyway, and I've realized that, part of the things I was doing were actually Zen. And some of it was me working towards that, and some of it was just me stuffing it all down, because that's what society taught me to do. And so, it's one of those things. People can look one way on the outside and be one way on the inside. Especially in the social media world, things can definitely look one way and be completely different. People hide all kinds of stuff they don't talk about on Facebook and all the things, because some people do, but a lot of people don't. And I think a lot of us live our lives that way for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just faster to tell people that I'm fine when they ask you, how you're doing. Sometimes you just really don't want to talk about it. Sometimes it's not the right person to talk to. You know, like I said, a whole host of reasons. So, and like with anything, you have to look at things and figure out the why and the how, to figure out if it's real or not. Like my Zen driving, for instance. And our brains aren't really wired to do that. So it's one of those things you have to consciously decide to do. You know, just, yeah. So, honestly, I think this is where meditation comes in handy. Because it allows you to get into a different mindset and a different space than regular life to sort of reset everything. And I say that as someone who desperately needs to meditate more. You know, there's other things you can do to sort of get your mind and your spirit back on track, and, you know, services, yoga, meditation, probably missing a bunch of things, going on a walk, whatever helps. And like one of my biggest coping mechanisms is writing fiction, because I can get all of it out in a way that doesn't feel real, and then I can look at what I wrote later and go, oh, I was writing about my life. But that's my thing, and now you might have something else that's completely yours. You know, some people do woodworking. Whatever works. Again, it's about the internal reality and finding what works to get your internal reality where you want it. And again, figuring out how you feel sometimes is the hard part. Especially if you're going through a hard time, or if you have a lot of past trauma, all the things. I could keep going, but yeah. So I'm gonna end this by I'm gonna read a different version of the lesson, because for me, part of coming to this homily was I realized that I needed to, for myself, read a more contemporary version of Philippians. Yeah. And I thought, if it helped me, maybe it'll help you. So yes. I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all, the Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so with that, go in peace.